Join me, Lou Diamond, on a new podcast show called Why They Listen, where I sit down with incredible leaders and communicators from different industries, unique platforms, and special programming from across the globe, and take a deeper dive into not only how they communicate, but how they connect and engage audiences, and why those audiences listen. You can find a new episode of Why They Listen wherever you listen to your podcasts, or at Aimcast, AIMECAST.com.
You know what always cheers me up? Rolled up aces over kings. Check raising stupid tourists and taking huge pots off of them. Playing all-night high-limit hold'em at the Taj. Stacks and towers of checks I can't even see over. And Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond.
A third of the people love you, a third don't care about you, and a third hate you. So you concentrate on the third that love you and you go for it.
I think the greatest Achilles heel for leaders is they don't give themselves time to think.
So my journey is one of those, there are a lot of detours. There's a lot of going off on the side roads.
Thrive Out listeners, you're in for a treat. We're here with Jamal Mashburn, Jesse Itzler,
the John Maxwell,
Jackie the Joke Man Martling, New York Rangers great Mike Richter,
Lisa Lampanelli,
Mary Carrillo.
Oh, how nice.
I'm actually going through the practice of being an entrepreneur.
Pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and thrive loud.
Get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
I love it.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Thrive Loud with Lou Diamond, connecting you to the most inspiring and amazing people that are thriving each and every day. I'm your host, Lou Diamond. Today on Thrive Loud, we have an automation and business intelligence expert and godsend, a business exit strategy guru, a valuation multiple genius. He's also a heck of an entrepreneur, and we are going to cover one of his latest works of greatness. A lot of themes of the letter G, because Thrive Loud listeners, he goes by just one letter, the letter G. G. Leavitt, welcome to Thrive Loud.
Pleasure being here.
So people need to know that this is a, I think, 3.5-4 year conversation in the making. I met you back in New York City, right? One of the events, or maybe it was Dallas or San Francisco. I've lost track. When the heck did we meet?
I believe it was New York City as well, but it could have been Dallas.
So this is interesting. Your ability to automate business intelligence and business functions for other businesses is a business unto itself. Can you share with the listeners, first of all, how that became your thing first? Let's rewind the clock a little bit, and then we're going to talk about this thing you're working on right now, which is one of the most unique concepts I've heard in a while. So has this always been your thing, Mr. Business Intelligence and Automation?
Yeah, well, no, definitely not. I stumbled into technology through marketing. And I think a lot of us kind of find ourselves in a wormhole, coming from some other dimension. And so that's kind of what happened to me is when I left Ford, started a marketing company. I got that marketing company, I was about 25 years old, to 1.2 million in revenue on 11% net. Was frustrated by those net margins. And so I set out to improve those and stumbled into a whole bunch of books and concepts, and ended up concluding, independent of those books, I should probably just build a software where everything in my business is frictionless because there's like one place of truth. And I did that and got that business to over 50% net. So we 5x'd our net profits. And, at that point, I kind of realized I had a proclivity for it. And, the rest is the West, as they say.
They do say that, don't they? So this is interesting. I want to talk about some of the functions that you've taken on. Let's share with the listeners maybe some of the technology processes, operations, things that you will take in-house, so to speak, and take away from what others are doing because those efficiencies are better.
Sure. Well, we look at it as essentially, I'll just teach a little bit of content here because I think it's valuable. The way we assess it is by assessing the pie chart of the individuals in the organization. We find that it makes very little sense to think sort of in esoteric terms around software. I'm like, oh, we should implement a cool CRM. No, we should do what people are wasting their time on. That's what we should do. And so the simplest and most effective way is to analyze the pie chart of how people spend their time. In analyzing the pie charts of my organization at the time, essentially what I found was things like we were arguing about whether the customer had been invoiced and what was left on their retainer, and like which note was placed last and who had touched the client last, and all these project management issues that frankly weren't solvable via a project management solution, because we needed a project management solution that was also an invoicing solution, and we needed a project management solution that was also a CRM, and we needed a CRM project management invoicing solution that also cut down on 17 other friction points in the business. Right. And so in the creation of that tool set for us, for our business, we were able to create that 5x net profit.
Gee, there's one thing in creating a business, which is what Toolbox does, and we'll talk about that in a sec. There's another thing that you've come up with, which is the concept that I think is pretty sharp. Can you share with the listeners a little bit about tech for equity?
Yeah, the concept is private equity and venture invests cash for equity, right? So equity for cash is their model. And in our model, we work similarly, except the investment we're making into the company is code. So we like to call it equity for code. And that's inherently super valuable because when you become more of a technology-oriented company, you change your valuation multiple. So you change the inherent nature of what your company is worth because you change its scalability, its transferability, and of course, hopefully along the way, you change its EBITDA or net profits. And so when you're influencing EBITDA directly, and when you're changing the category by which a company is valuated or looked at, we're talking about large increases in enterprise value, large increases in net worth. You know, if there's one single stakeholder who owns a business worth $10 million, you know, that business could be worth $50 million given the right levers. So what we do is we come in like a private equity company, but we invest code, and that code inherently changes that valuation. We work together to grow the company moving forward.
See, I love this, Jay. This is so smart. Where many people are looking for cash or an injection, obviously many of these businesses really do need code, the technology, the systems to be put in place to keep their business fluid, running, growing, and expandable. And obviously, it also shows a real commitment from a partner helping with the technology aspect of it. What type of businesses need this type of service, or have you been targeting more often in your ventures and what you've been going after?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think we tend to talk to people who understand valuation and multiples real well. And specifically, we talk to a lot of people who are looking to exit at some point, who are obsessed with their valuation or their stock price or share price. And I think that's the primary answer. The secondary answer is any business that feels that tech deficiency could ultimately kill them, right? Could be their demise because of the speed at which their industry is moving. So unless they get in front of it, they're inherently behind it, right? And so where are you? Are you in sync with the way technology is proliferating, or are you behind it? And so we just tend to be a really good fit for people who understand where they fit in that inside of their own industry. And then, of course, those that are looking to exit, it's kind of a no-brainer because the number that you exit at is inherently only driven by three factors, and that's revenue, EBITDA, and your valuation multiple. And our software influences all three.
So let's talk about that. So I want to take the situation of the hurdles you might face. One is getting started, putting in that upstart time of bringing your code into an organization. And then I want to understand on the back end, when there is an exit, where you play into that space since you've been integral to the organization. Maybe share a little bit about how you kick things off and then kick things out, if you would.
Nice. Yeah, well, to understand that, you kind of have to understand our story a little, which is our toolbox was built over a decade. It was a 10-year period. I funded all of it, put nearly $8 million into the initial build. And since then it's proliferated and all of that. But the initial build was that $8 million chunk just to try and get code that would help us in marketing, in sales, in HR, in operations, and in finance. And so now that we have all 5 categories together, right, we're able to really assess where that company's at. And how we get started, essentially how we get kicked off is we set the frame that we're licensing you code, not products. And there are 30 products in our toolbox, but we need to edit those products to some degree to make them kind of yours, right? Because this is about your business, not like implementing a product. And so we try and talk to each partner on a level of, what do you think would inherently change your valuation, right? What do you think would inherently change the friction points in your business? And then we take that code, i.e. those products, and we modify them to make them the ideal perfect fit, sort of like that perfect fit gene, so that when they pull them on in the morning, it feels nice. And that's kind of how we get started, is analyzing the pie charts and then just figuring out how the code needs to be adapted. There's always an adaptation. That's kind of the point of the engagement. But another inherent piece to that is that most companies are trying to stitch together, 15 to 20 different softwares to get their organization to really be fully automated. And that's just tough, because the user experience around how do I log into 17 different things today to do my job, that's inherent friction built in, right? So regardless of how well those softwares work, now you have to get into all of them and know how they all work. So the friction actually becomes the softwares themselves. And that's the rub. That's the bugaboo, right? Is that you're trying to get rid of friction in the business, not implement software, right? So getting rid of friction in the business is it can be a double-edged sword. And so by having one platform, not 17, that's where the friction actually leaves. The second part to your question, I would say, is that how we get out. Well, we have an equity position inherently in the deals that we do. And I will say that we also consider carried interest as opposed to equity at times. But we usually have straight equity. And there are covenants, restrictions, terms, triggers, different things that are in our agreements so that we can get out, if we need to. And the partner can get out as well. And these are high-level decisions that are made by all parties. About how the operating agreement should read or how the bylaws should read of the corporation. And we generally stay in as long as the partner wants to stay. So we're generally doing deals where these guys want to stay in for 3 to 5 more years, no problem. And we're ultimately trying to build up to a number, right? We've picked a number. And sometimes it's a number out of a hat, and sometimes it's a number that the owners have known for a long time. Like, I need to sell the business for 80 million because after tax, I'll have 60 million, and I'm going to use that 60 million for, saving children in Africa or whatever the cause is, right? And so we're kind of reverse engineering off of that dream.
So now I want to ask, I guess, the hurdle question. Let's play a little devil's advocate here. A lot of these companies have existing systems, and those hurdles that you described, those things that are causing delays and issues, does that change a lot of the integration into the way that you work in? Meaning, obviously, you can provide the full suite of services as part of the code that you can bring in and help someone's operating system and those efficiencies, but maybe they're very particular to a CRM system or to some kind of internal system that they have. Is your platform enabled to integrate in that way?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we try and do, again, it's about eliminating friction, right? So if you're on the right CRM, then we may not even try and change that, right? But now we have to get the rest of the organization to work seamlessly inside of that. So what we've built is an intelligent way to bring external softwares into the toolbox, and then to create one environment where even if you had to bolt on a couple of other softwares, we're still eliminating friction in people's day. So it's very, very friendly with external softwares, but we would have a look at, is there a way to get off of all existing third-party vendors for systems, right? Because if we can effectively get off all those systems, then the business can argue that it's on its own technology and that technology has been homegrown for its particular needs. And that will change the perception or the optics at the buyout or at the exit.
Gee, this is an interesting business to run. And what I mean by this is you obviously have the head for business and understanding that you're looking to help them increase their multiples, get their valuation where they need to. And that's a very strategic form of operating a business. And then there's the other component, which is this is a pretty operationally heavy type of organization that you've created and managing it. Which camp do you like playing in more as you're, looking within your day, knowing that you're doing all of it running a company like this? Is there one side you prefer to hang out with more than the other?
I think years ago I would have answered that I like playing on the product side because I have a lot of inherent skills around automation and how the products need to come together to actually make a difference in people's lives. But I spent a decade there. And so I've gotten the best of both worlds, Lou, because I got to hang out there for 10 years while my marketing business poured off so much net profit that allowed me to pay for all this stuff and hang out with the product team and dream up solutions, And so I lived it up, I did that life and it was amazing. Today, I find incredible amounts of joy in actually just straight up deal making, right? Finding people who I know and they know that inherently we will be much better together than apart. And we go ahead and try and put together a marriage that makes sense for both parties. And I'll tell you, my current partners are, not only are they happy with the terms, they're ecstatic most of the times with the terms because, well, we have so much leverage because of the software, but we also have the ability to be very kind to them because we're not putting in cash. And so, it's a true partnership in the sense of the emotion behind what type of relationships we're building.
For the listeners, so you can at least explain this, can you give a range maybe of the size of organizations and the range that you work with? Go like from what's the smallest company that you work with, maybe sales or number of people, to the biggest one that you're working with.
Yeah, smallest is someone with an idea that is a technology idea. And the play there would be for us to come in as the technology co-founder or sort of the CTO co-founder. And we would bring the code necessary to get the initial product complete. That would be a zero requirement in terms of revenue or employee count. On the top end, the biggest businesses that are in our pipeline are total value, enterprise value, or market cap are in the billions of dollars. Yeah. So it just depends on, the inherent nature of that business and how far behind it is or how far out of sync it is with technology proliferation, right? How fast has technology moved according to Moore's law, et cetera, et cetera? What's really going on in technology? And then has that particular business really innovated and evolved at the speed at which technology has evolved? And if the answer is no, then they're inherently out of sync. And what they're essentially hiring or partnering with us to do is to bring those two things into sync.
It's pretty awesome. Gee, I love asking guests on the program this question. You made that perfect balance between spending a lot of time on the product side and obviously now doing the deal side. The company is thriving. You're having a lot of success, and it's a really unique environment that you're in because you're pretty much happy each day. Unless of course, you're driving around California with one of your buddies trying to get a podcast going. We'll get to that. But on those days when you're not quite thriving, what practice do you seek or what individual do you seek out to get yourself back on the thriving track?
I have 4 spiritual, energy, and personal coaches. I'm dramatically invested into myself. I have 2 or 3 people that work on my body. I have multiple massages per week. I do stretching. I journal at least 2 hours a day, spend some pretty heavy time in thought, meditation exercises, and true actual working on my psychology, clearing the timelines of your life that hold you back, clearing beliefs that hold you back. This is a huge part of what I feel is part of entrepreneurship. I've, if you look at like my net worth as an example, it's probably went up 300 times, not 300%, but 300 times since I started doing work in consciousness, journaling, beliefs, etc. It's just an unbelievable practice that I think everyone should be doing, regardless of what business they're in.
Well said across the board. Let's do this. Let's do the admin part of the show. Share with the listeners all the places people can find you. They can learn about Toolbox. They can learn about where they could find you, social websites, yourself, all that stuff. We will put it all in the show notes. However, it always gets more engagement when they hear it directly from you.
Yeah, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. That's generally pretty easy. G Leavitt, Gaydon Leavitt, Gaydon, Leavitt. I invite you to connect there. That's really my main social channel. That's highly looked at and managed, etc. So that's a good place. If there are those that are interested, what we do is we like to create alliances with folks out there, and if they want to reach out, you can talk about how to earn equity in deals by referring those deals and kind of partnering with Toolbox. And that's kind of more or less what we're up to, is just building relationships and being able to share the equity that we ultimately take in these companies with our friends who help make it happen, right? For those who are interested in really diving into like, how does this business model work? I would say go to lifetimelicensing.com, and you can see our lifetime licensing strategy, how we deploy the code into the businesses, why they do it. You can kind of see the whole pitch deck, and I think that will help a bit.
G. Leavitt, permission to go down Fun Street with you here as we wrap up this fun episode.
Permission granted.
Okay, let's start off with your all-time favorite movie.
Shawshank Redemption.
And why does that movie connect so much with you?
I think it's one of those movies that never gets old because here's a smart guy that is pursuing a dream. He's ultimately in a prison of sorts, and I think we're all in some sort of a prison. How he breaks through, how he fights through, his tenacity, I just find it very inspiring. And at the end when you see him there on the beach, and his friends running up to him, it's just one of those things like, wow, these guys, I don't know, they were fearless, and they were tenacious, and they were incredibly smart. So it's just really cool to see.
That's so true. Let alone the fact that you have, Morgan Freeman, one of the greatest voices, doing a voiceover for the entire movie, and it's impossible not to just melt when you hear what's the line from the movie Ted 2? Your voice is silk. So
yeah, he's in it and he's narrating. Yeah, it's good stuff.
It's great stuff. Okay, so this is how this round of, we call it the speed round here at Thrive Lab. This is a down Fun Street. I'm gonna ask a quick question, and it's the first thing that comes to your mind that lifts you up, that makes you feel good, that really kind of makes you thrive. So a song that pumps you up.
Sia.
Interesting. A favorite food that's not a dessert.
Enchiladas.
Favorite dessert.
Frozen custard.
An activity you wish you did more of.
Golf.
An activity you wish you did less of.
Sitting.
If you can snap your fingers and go anywhere, where are you?
Jackson Hole, Wyoming.
What inspired G. Leavitt to do a podcast driving around in a Tesla in California? This is a one-word answer. Let's share what's going on. You actually are going to put together a program, are you not? Let's talk.
Yeah. I think it's important for people to understand technology proliferation. I think that in essence, technology is a few giants and a whole bunch of people who have no idea what's going on. And so I'm not talking about the basic technology stuff like I know how to use technology for communication. We all know that. But I'm talking about true blue, peopleless, paperless, automated, robotic, AI-driven, machine learning-oriented automation. And there's very few experts out there if you really look at the entire world, So it's tough because they're all gobbled up by these giants like Amazon or Salesforce or Google or Elon Musk companies. So the proliferation of technology is something that I think we need to talk more about, and we need to get Main Street America up to speed. And so I'm going to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it a lot more. Also share a lot about business and about some of the tips we talked about around consciousness and things like that. But I think we want to keep the show oriented towards, how do you make a meaningful exit for your family that could create generational wealth? And that probably has more to do with technology than we're currently thinking.
Does the show have a name?
It's called Autopilot.
Oh, that's right. Okay, Autopilot. We will put a link, however it is, if it's out now at this point, or we'll keep you in the loop as the program comes out. But this is awesome, man. I think it's great. And for the listeners, need to know that I was touching base with G to kind of schedule this call and talk more about some of those partnerships with his companies. And I caught them in the middle of recording, and they were in a giggle session, which was just classic because obviously I interrupted them on the Bluetooth or whatever it was. So it was pretty funny.
One of the funniest moments of my life. We can't go into it on the show, but it was absolutely hysterical.
Good stuff, man. Well, G. Leavitt, the automation and business intelligence expert, Toolbox. We will put all the links in the show notes. This was awesome to finally get you on this program. Continued success to you. Love hearing about all the great things you're doing for yourself, for these companies, and for the world, man. Thank you for coming on Thrive Loud.
It's been my pleasure.
And to all our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. And until next time, keep thriving onward and upward. And remember, be brief, be bright, be gone.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Check us out on the web at thriveloud.com and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook at Thrive Loud. And check us out on the Good Pods app at Thrive Loud, where you can follow, listen, and connect directly to Lou and all of the Thrive Loud episodes. Thanks for listening.